All right, we're back. We got a special edition here for you. Our special guest is the lead singer, also guitar playing and bringing the front man to the Humble Pie legacy. Please welcome Jim Stapley.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Jim. I mean, what can you say? You take a band from the '70s that has deep roots into the '60s and all
Mhm.
this American great blues and soul, and now revive it. Like we talk about. You go to a Rolling Stones concert these days. There's like four generations. There's the original fans, their kids, and their kids.
Yeah,
And you're seeing these teenagers walking around with humble pie or AC/DC or Rolling Stone shirts and Led Zeppelin, and you're wondering, God, these guys weren't even born, 30 years after those bands broke up or, ceased to exist. But, you know, I think so many people look at the '70s as that blueprint, that well, that everything great that's come since, draws from. You mentioned a band like Rival Sons. You hear it in Jay's voice, and the riffs and the music. They're pulling from that music, but putting their own twist on it. Talk
right.
about obviously growing up loving people like Steve Marriott and Steve Winwood and stuff like that. Working, of course, with Dave Bucket Colwell. Of
Mhm.
course, Dave known from his years with Bad Company, and now with, of course, the Humble Pie, and he even played with Jerry Shirley on some of that stuff
Yeah.
earlier. Talk about jumping at the chance, and of course, your common ground working with Kenny Jones and the Jones gang to team up with Bucket on the new Humble Pie legacy.
Yeah, it's funny. Bucket and I, we've known each other now for, man, it's got to be at least 15 years. And back then, I started playing with Kenny Jones and the Jones Gang because originally they'd been looking for a new singer for the Faces. You remember when Mick Hucknall joined the band for a while? Well, the other guy who was in the running was me. But Mick got the gig, and Kenny called me. He said, "Look, that's off the table now, but would you consider playing with us?" And that's how I met Bucket, and we ended up playing a ton of shows together and having. We always got on like a house on fire, and he is a great guitar player. He's solid as a rock. Like you never hear him make a mistake. It's kind of ridiculous. Um, and we've had a lot of good times off stage together as well, which I won't go into too much detail because some things have to remain private, but we've had a great time, and we've bonded kind of formed a good friendship over the years. And he and I then worked on his original record as well, with the band Bucket's Rebel Heart. I sung most of that first record with him, and we went out and played at Sweden Rock a few years back, and that was super fun. And then he's been doing his thing in England, and I've been over here kind of writing original music and playing with a bunch of different people. And I was out on the road with Carmine Appice with Cactus because I sing with those guys too. And I think I just got off a run, and I got a message from Bucket um, saying, "Hey, I need to talk with you." 2 words: humble pie. And my stomach kind of went gulp. And so I gave him a call, and said yes straight away because I love the music. I'm a fan of the band. Um, but I did have a little worry because, I'm also friends with Molly and Tonya, Steve's daughters. And, Molly used to sing backups in my band. And, she's on the record that we made with Tony Visconti. And I subsequently wrote a couple of songs on her record, co-wrote with her, sorry, and sang backups for her on her record. And we've known each other for years because of the connection to Kenny Jones. Kenny to her is, like Uncle Ken. She's known him for her whole life. And I was really concerned that they be okay with it, and so I kind of voiced that when I came into Humble Pie and Humble Pie Legacy, I should say. And Jerry and Bucket and everybody, and Steve, the manager, everybody had the same worries, and were very aware that they wanted this to be kind of sanctioned by every member of each part of the family that is Humble Pie, from Peter and Clem to all the kids, Greg's kids, Steve's kids, the whole kind of larger family. And when I saw how carefully that they were considering all of that, and the addition of the word legacy, which really I think describes what we're trying to do, I felt even more excited because, I'm not Steve Marriott, and I never will be. No one could fill those boots, and it is a huge undertaking to just get close to it. And so to know that at least all of those things were taken care of, and it was a real kind of holistic, heartfelt kind of approach, gave me even more warm and fuzzies, and from then on it's been full steam ahead. We got together and did some filming, and now the tour's coming up. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, there's so many great bands again from the 70s that were gone way too soon, or members changed, or we lost members. I mean, you even look at a band like the Eagles. I mean, it's really Don Henley's the only original player in there. There's later members like Joe Walsh and Timothy B. Schmidt and whatever, but there's a lot of bands that are far from the original. And of course, Jerry Shirley is the captain of the ship. And it still blows me away that Jerry said he was like 15 or something when he met Steve in the front room and played, and 16 by the time they cut the first record. So he's still got that energy, but to go out there on the road, it's athleticism, and you need a Bobby Marks, on drums to pull that off. But Jerry's obviously very involved in every aspect of this, and he's he's right there with you.
Yeah, he's strict about it too, especially with Bobby, bless him, because Bobby, we all have our own inherent styles, but we're all trying to do the music as much justice as we can. And I think Bobby's probably got the hardest job in some respects. It's like, I can't even imagine having Steve breathe down my neck saying that you've not got it. You know what I mean? Like, but it's cool. It's cool to have Jerry on board. And I saw Jerry play back in Austria when we were doing a Harley Davidson rally with my original band. I saw him play drums with Debbie Bonham, and God, he sounded so bloody good. And I don't think he's ruled out making the odd appearance with us. I think that would be really cool. I think for the original kind of longtime fans of Humble Pie, I think that would be a really nice thing to see too. But yeah, it's a hell of a thing. Touring is exhausting, and I completely get that he is choosing the position that he's in. I think it makes a ton of sense. And what a great thing to be able to be steering this ship, and making sure that it's done right. Because the worst thing would be to see someone, do kind of a half-baked tribute act and just see your music decimated, with his hands on it, and with everybody's blessing. I think it's a really, really nice thing. And, we all kind of have this like warm energy about it. There's a lot of love in the room. There's a lot of love in all the messages we send each other and the conversations we have. And I think that really is stemming from Jerry and how it's being dealt with. It's great. And he's such a nice bloke.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
No, he's awesome. I love talking to Jerry, and I love the title of his book, The Best Seat in the House, and like Humble Pie, looking at the backs of Peter Frampton and Steve Marriott and Greg Ridley and Clem Clemson, he can now, be the conductor and have that best seat in the house looking at you guys saying, hey, you need a little more of this, a little less of that, and you know,
Absolutely.
maybe try this song. Obviously the catalog is much deeper, than your average person may know. But once
Absolutely.
you hook them with the hit, so to speak, you can keep them there for a journey, and they're like, wow, where'd that song come from? What album is that on? And
Yeah, and
kind of a
I'm
history
looking
lesson.
forward to that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure. I think there's probably 5 to 8 songs that everybody's going to want to hear, and then the other ones, I'm really hoping we're able to switch out. There's a song that I love, the Sad Bag of Shaky Jake. I really want to play that, and I think we're talking about doing it or at least being one of those songs that kind of comes in and out of the set, because I just think it's so cool. I think the groove it's a slower song, but it's just got so much kind of strut to it. I'd love to do that one, and that's a deeper cut. Not everybody knows that song, but it's a hell of a song. And I'm a big fan of some of the really earlier stuff. Like those first, like the Humble Pie record. Like it'd be cool to do a little more of that folky stuff once in a while.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's an amazing catalog. And what do you think it is about the 70s? Of course there were great bands in the 60s and the Beatles and the Stones and everything. Kind of, Zeppelin kind of led us into the 70s. But
Mm-hmm.
you look at that decade, so many iconic bands, so many iconic albums. What do you think it was about that time that made such timeless music?
I think it's really the result of a perfect storm leading up until that moment. Coming out of, if you look at like the sequential evolving of that stuff from the original kind of folk music from black musicians in the South, all the way to the mid 70s, where there were people who were really playing the same music, were playing to massive arenas. I think over a 40-year period you had a opening up of the general populace's kind of idea to essentially black music, and I think you started to see money piled into it because people started buying into it. And I really do think that like the 70s just was kind of like the very tip of the iceberg that you know kind of exploded, and it really it started picking up a lot of steam in the early 60s, but I think it's just this gradual thing. And like we've already talked about, if you start to look at all of the bands that these guys, Zeppelin and Cream and Humble Pie and all of those guys were covering, like they're all, and the Stones, like they're all pulling from way earlier stuff but they were just geeking out ahead of the curve. And I think years later, and by like 1974, 1975, 1975, the Faces were touring America, and they were the biggest grossing band on the road, which is kind of crazy. In that time, like people are just everywhere they looked, they had great options, and everywhere. And so like the whole mentality was, who are we going to see this weekend? Like who we like, let's go see some more music. I remember being in LA in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, and kind of having that same feeling on a very small level. And it made me think of the mid 70s and just thinking, my God, like how much just stunning music would I have seen if I could think how I'm thinking right now, which is like, okay, I'm done with my day in the studio. Who's playing where tonight? I'm going to go and see him. And in the 70s, there was a flood of it because it was the crest of that wave that had been building for, a half a decade. And it's also like, the powers that be had decided to put the money into it too. And, and it was a pretty special time also because the artists were still making money out of record sales. That's disappeared now. Yeah, I think it was pretty cool. I think it in my humble opinion, it's definitely that kind of perfect storm thing. I hope we see it again. I wish I was there the first run round.
Yeah. Like you say in LA, you know, something could be going on at the Troubadour or the Starwood or the
Absolutely, yeah.
Whiskey or, you know,
Or
any
even like
number of clubs on any
Spaceland,
given night.
you know? Yeah, like it was so cool to just be like, all right, I'm done with the studio. Like, who am I seeing tonight? And it wasn't even who am I seeing? It was just where am I going? What vibe do I want? You know, like I used to love going to Spaceland and just seeing who was playing, you know, like, and I didn't even look. I'd just show up and listen to what was on stage. And I think, you know, you could do that in this on the strip in the 80s and definitely in the 70s in LA. And you know, I don't know of many places now where you can do that, you know. It's
Yeah.
changed.
Plus, I think in the 80s, it became such a bigger business, you know, with MTV, the labels that were like, hey, you
Yeah.
got to dress like this and you got to
Yeah, it
sound
went into
like that.
hyperdrive.
In the 70s, once they signed you, every act, you know, was completely unique. They were an island upon themselves. You know, you didn't have this kind of copycat, you know, syndrome, you know, where the business people are like, well, this is hot. We need to sign two more of these
Oh
bands,
yeah,
you know?
totally, yeah. And you know, you had this thing called artist development, you know, like which is rare these days, if even heard of. And I think the big change like between now and then is that, you know, back then you just had to be great at writing songs and great at performing them, right? These days you've got to be a media mogul before you can even get someone to open the door. And how much great music is that suppressing? There's still great music out there, but I feel like a lot of it is lost because of the kind of the you know, the pop wheel. And I'm not talking about pop music, I'm talking about whatever's popular, you know, like you say, the copycat things and the kind of single use mentality we have these days. Like I don't know how many people listen to a record top to bottom anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, I do because I still listen to vinyl, but
of course.
like, you know, but I don't know how many kids do. Maybe they do.
Yeah, just
But
competing for the time. They're playing video games. They're on TikTok. They're on everything is pulling them away from even listening to a full song, you know?
yeah, or reading a book, you know, like it was.
What's a book? I
Yeah,
mean,
right,
it's
exactly.
unbelievable.
I
But yeah,
know.
no, it's such a rich legacy of these bands, and you know, so few of them are still out there, and you see all these farewell tours, you know, Foreigner or Leonard Skinner or you know, ACDC or whatever. You just it's hard to imagine these bands going much further or playing new music, and you know, to dig deep into a well like Humble Pie, and of course, I'm also, as you, a big fan of Paul Rogers, and have interviewed him
Yeah.
many times. And whether he's playing Free or Bad Company or solo stuff, he's just kept his voice in such great shape. And
Yeah, that's incredible. I don't know. I mean, he still sounds just so great. It's nuts, you know.
yeah,
Steve Winwood too.
he hasn't lost anything. I swear he sounds better than he did in Free.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing he's a little cleaner now. You know, he's not smoking all the weed that they probably smoked back then. You know, there's some great stories about Free just kind of sitting around and playing for 2 hours and smoking before the doors even opened. You know, and then they'd walk off stage to walk back on and do the show they'd already played once. You know, but like, yeah, it's a testament to his discipline, really, that he can still do that. You know, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
well, we've seen the promo video, and we'll have links to it below. Check out the Humble Pie legacy, of course. Not only Jim Stapley, but Ivan and Bobby and
Yep.
Bucket. I mean, what a tight little unit here, and these guys are playing their ass off, loving Humble Pie, not trying to be a Greg Ridley or a Jerry Shirley or a Steve Marriott, but you know, making a heartfelt salute to them. And it's like, look,
Absolutely.
whether you saw them, you know, back in their prime or barely got to see them before they split up or never got to see them, um, you know, there's not enough of that experiences anymore where you can go and and you know, the lights go down, and it kind of transports you to a simpler time where the music was pure and the excitement was high. So we can't
Yeah.
thank you enough, Jim.
Well, we're just looking forward to getting out there and rocking and having that marvelous exchange with a room full of people who are as big of fans of the music as we are. Like that's what it comes down to. Like it's just a big old love fest, man. Like we just want to get in a room and play some great music and hopefully send people home with some good memories and then do it all again the next day.
Yeah, and hopefully that's inspiring some young bands to say, "Hey, I'm not looking for a shortcut. We're going to get in the garage or the basement, and we're going to woodshed, and we're going to develop you know, a command of our instruments, and then we're going to learn that fine art of songwriting, which I don't think you ever stop. You know,
No.
songwriting is a craft you work at every day of your life. I see Smokey Robinson in his 80s still working on new songs. You know, guys
Yeah.
only written like 100 classics. You know,
Yeah.
but you never stop, and
I
that's
agree.
what's great through all those eras. And we want to encourage everyone to check out Humble Pie Legacy. Go to the website, look at the dates.
Yep.
If they're not in a city near you, please consider traveling or wait, because there's more dates coming.
There
And
are. Yeah.
we can't wait for you to get back out to the Cali coast out here and light up some of these great venues, and hopefully see some future packages with some other great acts doing similar type stuff. I know my friend Bobby Masano's doing a cream. They call it Cream Faith with Kofi Baker, Ginger Baker's son, stuff like that. You know,
Oh
so
yeah, they were doing a thing with Malcolm too for a minute there, weren't they? Malcolm Bruce and
yeah,
Kofi.
yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I know Malcolm from way back.
So
He's
yeah,
on.
I'm hoping that we can have a nice revival, and again, keep this spirit alive, inspire some new music, go out and support live music, and it's coming your way. Thank you so much for joining us, Jim, and we look forward to our next conversation and following the arc and the evolution of Humble Pie Legacy.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody out on the road. It's going to be a blast.